Hey folks, and welcome to the Daily Ratings Podcast. It's a show where each week we'll sit down with Vincent Daly to get his thoughts on the latest movies he's been watching, both older films and new releases. And don't worry, there's no spoilers. Vince will give a brief review of the movie, share some thoughts, and of course, then rate the film. The Daily Ratings are always fair, honest, and most importantly, they're consistent. On today's show, Vince will be rating and reviewing The Hunted by William Friedkin, Warrior by Gavin O'Connor, Kin by Jonathan Baker and Josh Baker, Ambulance by Michael Bay, and finally newly released Bullet Train, directed by David Leitch. So stay tuned and enjoy the show. Mr. Vincent Daly, how's it going, buddy?
Tommy, how's it going?
It's going well for me. We had a week off and we released a special there, but how's your movie watching been going?
Yeah, so I was on the road this week, and that kind of was a little bit of a juggling act in itself to watch movies, but it kind of bred my own idea of movies on the road. You know, something that you maybe catch on TV, something that you maybe is a little bit mindless.
Okay,
just kind of
sit in an airplane too, something like that.
Yeah. So movies on the road is kind of the theme this week, and of course, excited to talk about Bullet Train, which is. Of course, it's got your boy.
Everyone's boy is Brad Pitt. I don't know if I can claim Brad Pitt all by himself.
Right.
I'm excited for Bullet Train. I hope, I want it to be good.
Sure.
And I want to see it. So I hope it's good. But first, okay, so I kind of like that. Kind of on the road movies for easy watchers, kind of action packed guys.
You're right.
We're starting back in 2003. This is The Hunted by William Friedkin. And I had always remembered this was a good film.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure I'm not sure if it's right, though.
It's got a lot of critical flack on it, actually, and I was surprised because, you know, Friedkin is definitely a top director for me. I'm always looking to tackle more, and despite, you know, some critical hate on this one, I was willing to give it a chance, for a really great director.
Good cast, too.
Yeah.
You got Tommy Lee Jones and Benicio. So.
Absolutely. And actually, Benicio is introduced as kind of a Black Ops assassin, off the record and jaded towards the terrible things he was deployed for. Honestly, the premise of this movie reminds me of a lot out there, and maybe a little bit of a theme this week as well. Pretty much every movie kind of reminded me of other movies, which is good and bad. It's what's comfortable, and if anything, that kind of adds to the on the road watch. I didn't want to be jumping through hoops for it. So his skills were originally honed by Tommy Lee Jones as a master tracker, and basically operated a program teaching these killer skills they both utilize, most notably being able to create a knife design for optimal close quarters combat. This is very much in the vein of, I don't say this as a slight to it, but wannabe Tom Clancy. This is definitely focused on details of tracking and what blade is best for killing, and those type of gritty military or paramilitary details that Tom Clancy is known for. This is not a property of his, though.
Right.
So.
And that is the thing I remember about this film is I remember it was on like lists of great fight battles or great knife fights in movies.
Yes.
And I forgot how much was knife centric in the film.
It really is a knife lovers movie. And for what it's worth, I mean those knife fights, the multiple knife fights, and I'll get into how much the movie is bare bones, but in a very good way. It keeps us right where we want to be. They're really bloody, and definitely an interesting interesting matchup seeing old Tommy Lee Jones going up against young Benicio del Toro. But it is good. The movie definitely gives you what you want. I would say this style, though, it is shown directly in that military babble of the script. The focus on tracking patterns and certain types of shoes and efficiency of blade styles. I mean, I would, in a way, call it maybe a touch cookie cutter, and I think this is driven home because the story doesn't really have much more than the chase of Tommy Lee Jones being brought in as the master to hunt down his student.
Okay, sure.
It is both good and a bad, and I would say maybe more leaning towards good because honestly, there's no fluff to this movie. Even when there comes a time to explain Benicio's motivations, maybe elaborate on the connection between Tommy and Benicio as characters in this kind of master-student relationship, the film gives us a little bit, but it's really not concerned with it. It's concerned with high-stakes thriller action and having knife fights against
in
each
the
other.
chase. That's awesome, yeah.
Exactly. So maybe I think I make note of this because, again, you look online, and even at the time, this film got almost a surprising amount of flack.
Did it really?
Yeah.
I always thought it was a good movie. I don't know.
Right. And if anything, this was I think a theme this week was seeing something and maybe doing some preliminary research and seeing it was bad and almost getting excited to be like, all right, can I be a contrarian? Can I say this is a good movie or anything like that? I mean, I definitely see where hardcore critics could look at this and say, "Oh, I mean, the story is nothing." You know what I mean? It's wannabe Rambo. It's wannabe First Blood. But at the same time, there was a certain focus that this film had that was refreshing, where so much in the modern landscape is their fluff. They're adding in either comedic spin, it really was refreshing for that.
Yeah, it's only
reason.
an hour and 34 too, so that's good that it's you're in your seat and you just go.
And you know how much I've been appreciating that hour and 30, mark.
Oh, absolutely.
It's a compounding effect. So I've been enjoying that.
So what were some of these films, some other films that came to mind? Were any of them, like, oddly enough, The Fugitive with Tommy Lee Jones and constantly just on the chase? Or?
Yeah. Definitely there, just with the nature of soldier jaded towards the things he had to do. It is very much First Blood of the Rambo series. And especially that, Benicio is kind of set into the wild and is running away from his pursuers.
Right.
That type of jungle mixed with, almost predator action to it. That's what was coming to mind. Yeah. And I think this film, again, whether you want to knock it or not for its wannabe Tom Clancy detailed orientedness,
right?
It has a cool amount of detail.
I was gonna say,
traps, is that bad? Yeah, traps. Shoes. I think again, some people are not going to see that and get any kind of enjoyment out of it. I think I was enjoying it because again, it set up the focus that this is about the thriller action, not necessarily what is the poetic father-son relationship between Benicio and Tommy.
Right,
you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
I have to say, totally a movie you would watch with your dad in an afternoon. I mean, this is like a USA watch or something. The story here isn't super deep, and instead, again, like I've said multiple times, set up on that chase and focused on high suspense. I have to say, one aspect I loved was how much Tommy and Benicio are pitted against each other. Acting-wise, neither of them are really doing anything special, but I really enjoyed how much time the plot is focused on them being neck and neck. I mean, Benicio will get somewhere, and Tommy is right on his tail. And I think this made up for maybe... You look at Tommy Jones, even in 2003, and he's not an action star. I mean, this is not a physical performance that we get out of him. And I think very strategically in the edit of this film, we get to see Tommy be a master to Benicio, even though he's not anywhere near as physical as Benicio on screen. But they keep him right on his tail, and it shows that he is the master.
Right, he's got the brains behind it, even if he's in the aging kind of soul.
Exactly. exactly. Yeah, with that physical performance maybe lacking a little bit. So I
Right.
think very strategically, again, the film isn't going to give a huge amount of extra time for maybe us to see Tommy be less than 100%. It's it's slimmed down, it's bare bones, but it knows what it wants to achieve, and it's about this high action chase.
Yeah, I mean, that's great.
Yeah, and pretty much all throughout the film.
Yeah,
too.
there's not that much fat, and it's just keeping you engaged. I mean, yeah, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that.
Absolutely. But this movie pays off with many sequences with the two engaging. Surprisingly, because I was, expecting them to kind of save the confrontation for the very end. Instead, we have really multiple beats of conflict between these two. I think maybe that was my modern watching, expecting this to build up the conflict. They never meet each other face to face. Maybe you get one halfway through, you get a little bit of conflict for second act, but then it's all built up for the end.
Instead, that would have been cookie cutter.
Right.
That's cookie cutter, yeah.
Instead, we are with them, constantly for this hour and 30 runtime. And maybe in that it's a little one note, but I got to say it was not bad. It was far from bad.
Good.
As far as the story, it is brief. The focus was where it should be, and I would say, again, the action is particularly sharp with some knife fights that are pretty awesome here. I can't really say there is significant storytelling between these two characters, but again, is that bare bone approach is what I was enjoying about this. This film originally got panned for comparisons to First Blood and other kind of rogue vengeance styled action flicks, but I would argue the simplicity here, it serves this master-student relationship, and it pays it off well by not muddying the runtime with aspects that would take us away from what clearly is the film's strength, and that is high-intensity action sequences, chase sequences, and this kind of military thriller vibe. We're going to go ahead and give The Hunted a 64.
Hey, okay.
It was solid.
We'll take a 64.
Yeah. I would say...
yeah, that's a pretty good movie.
Yeah, there's some others this week that I expected in that 64, but no. So I'm happy The Hunted was there, and definitely happy to always check out Friedkin's work, because he's a great director.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
It definitely deserves a rewatch. I'm gonna go back and watch this one, I think.
If only for knowing what is the best blade to kill a man. Right.
Okay, awesome. So that's 2003 with The Hunted. We're going on to 2011. This is Warrior, with Gavin O'Connor directing. Tom Hardy's the lead. And what do we get with this? This is a boxing movie, correct?
MMA movie specifically, but very
okay.
much structured like many other boxing movies. This kicked off definitely the watching from the road. This was just in the hotel's HBO, so I was like, all right,
It's perfect.
Yeah, it's perfect. Yeah. I gotta get them done. I gotta get the 5 done. So looking up a little bit about this film, I remembered it was also on a recommended list from my buddy Craig, so it was kind of a perfect watch, just something to put on and, not super critically watch it, but I wound up getting pretty invested in the story here. It definitely is a drama as much as it is MMA, or if you will, like a boxing type of format to the storytelling, the competition of it. Tom Hardy and Joel Edgerton are brothers, and they are estranged by their alcoholic father, played by Nick Nolte. I cannot stress enough, Nick Nolte is phenomenal here.
I mean, he's playing an alcoholic father. It just makes sense.
Right, yeah. It kind of fit into it. He got the Oscar nomination here, and I'll return to...
Oh, he did?
Yeah. Just a nod. And this was... I forgot to look up who won it that year, but yeah, I mean, I can't stress enough. I mean, he really is... both Tom and Joel are great. I would say Nick is really phenomenal here. The story splits its time between each brother. While I definitely preferred Tom Hardy's story for his performance, both sides keep a focus on MMA fighting. I think, not to parrot what I said with The Hunted, but there was a certain focus. This film very much was about the drama of their lives and these brothers' lives and how they intertwine back together after being apart. There are just so many sequences that we actually get, substantial sparring or actual just straight up MMA fights. It was very enjoyable. I mean, I think there was a good focus this film had, which more and more as we progress through the week, focus will be lost.
Okay.
The film is building towards a grand title match in the MMA. This is also interesting position because I think in the storytelling of this, MMA is not too mainstream yet, or UFC as far as the actual structure to it.
Right.
It is not too mainstream yet. It is kind of more of a niche, fighting, and I think there's some enjoyment of that as well. Looking back on this, because this was definitely an earlier film in the development of the sport and whatnot. So good publicity for that. And like I said, there are plenty of smaller spars to keep the action, so much so that I can still call it an action. Otherwise, it would be probably 90% of drama, and then just the payoff is with action.
Right.
So I thought it was important for that, because the highlight for me here is in the fighting and how it's filmed. I mean, much like we covered for In Full Bloom.
Right.
Or really, when I'm watching any sort of boxing type of movie, just how the fight choreography of an action film is probably the most important, how that's communicated to the audience through the camera work. This as well, I think this is not camera work that is just kind of there to just get the job done. They are doing creative things. I think one thing I noticed specifically about this film is that because MMA is dropping to the ground so often, we get these drastic vertical drops in the camera work and in the frame, which on the surface may just look like, your average shaky cam. This is 2011.
Right.
I mean, the shaky cam is still just very, very much in style here. But I think it's a good match because there is so often the fighters are not going to be on their feet. They're going to be on the ground and beating each other up. So I think the shaky cam or getting more chaotic in the camera work or in the cinematography when we're on the ground, I think was a good highlight of this film.
Yeah, visually it played well, and visually it was part of the storytelling, and you were into it.
Exactly.
Would you say, if it's doing a good job at telling the two stories of these two components, and maybe like Nick Nolte in there and everything like that, if you're not a fan of UFC or something like this, is this still a film for you? Is it still, does it still have the drama and the storytelling there?
Absolutely. Yeah. I would say, if anything, this is for a very wide array of audience members. Joel's side is, again, a little bit more predictable. My preference was definitely Tom Hardy's side, just for the sadness that was attached to it. But he has a family. He's driven kind of into this because he needs help financially as well. He's running out of options. Similarly, on both sides, you have the through line of Nick Nolte as their father and their alcoholism and what drove them apart originally. And that's excellent to unpack. And I would say, really, when we're not in the ring, the film's tone is sad and reflective, not to, over compare in my description of this, but it really is off the back of 2008's The Wrestler. It really had that same type of approach that when we're not in the ring, we're really getting very emotionally intimate with our characters. It's not just all about, in a Rocky way, where it's about the competition and the training.
Yeah, it's so true.
There's more of emotional depth in that time away from the ring.
I think I like that, and it's weird, this period where, we do have the Mickey Rourke one. There's a few that came out, kind of. There's something that people are able to do with these boxing movies where they're hitting on that, the dramatic and really the characters more, where it's for anyone. I mean, even if you go back to $1 Million Baby or something like that.
Sure.
It's good to hear that you don't have to be really into the sport or know anything about it, really. There's so much more there for you.
And I think the peak for me is always going to be Raging Bull, where just how simply it is fighting in the ring, fighting outside of the ring. The fight comes home. I'm not saying that story can't be repeated or can't be improvised upon, but I think that's where on Joel's side, as far as that performance there and the storyline there, that's where I felt there was maybe some more generic aspects, and that's where I was enjoying Tom Hardy's side, where he is. There's kind of a mystery to why he is not a active service member in the army. There's also the ongoing mystery of his relationship with the father, which is a little bit less clear cut, involving their mother. And I think there's a lot good to unpack there that breaks the mold of just another boxing fighting story.
Rocky. I think Rocky was a great...
Exactly.
Yeah, definitely.
I think really, as far as the performances here, like I said, Nick Nolte is stellar. I think a well-deserved for the Oscar nomination, and there's just so much depth that he brings into wanting to make up for the sins of his past. There was really some enjoyment there, and honestly, I mean, I can't really say I'm a huge Nick Nolte fan. You know, I mean, I don't really have anything even off the top of my head that I'm like, oh yeah, you got to see him in this. But this might be that, and I think that's great. You know, that was very enjoyable to watch him in it. And you can say, you know, what really depth is there bringing to, you know, alcoholic father? But I'm telling you, you know, he brings a lot to the performance, specifically in the stage of recovery that he's in.
Right.
And again, how this interplays and almost is never even given a straight answer for of what specifically was done to drive these brothers apart. You know, I mean, it's almost left to the imagination to the very end, which is great. You know,
Yeah, I like that.
it's not holding your hand. It's not, you know, we're not getting a flashback of what exactly happened.
Right.
You know?
That's actually, I like the sound of that. It's just straight through a dialogue and what's going on in present day, and you're just picking up the pieces, kind of, where this family's at, really.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the storytelling is told through his response of how much he's apologizing. And meanwhile, you're wondering, well, what the hell did he do to apologize so much? So I really do think it's, you know, that's that tale of alcoholism and the ripple effect it produced in the brothers' lives. I mean, that was really the cornerstone of why I think the drama worked here. So I should also say again that Egerton's side, Joel's side is not bad. Again, my approach to it is just that it's just a touch generic. It feels like the drama around financial problems. You know, it just feels like we need a reason to get him in the ring, and no less get him in the ring with having these familial problems with his brother as well.
Okay.
You know, both competing in the same industry or competing in the same competitions. You kind of wonder, why are they not linking up? Why are they not, you know, sharing moments together? And it feels, I don't know, it feels a little bit disconnected when it comes to Egerton's side, where Tom Hardy's side, I did not see that as a problem.
What was kind of the percentage of time on screen between those two? Did Tom Hardy kind of get more of a light shed on him?
I would say it's a good 50-50.
Really?
Yeah, surprisingly so. I mean, maybe, you know, you could say Egerton is the more morally good character between the two. So there's maybe a leaning the story has with that. But it really was a 50-50. I mean, this is a story for brothers and about brothers, and uses that well in how brothers fight. And obviously, it's about fighting. So I think there was a good follow through in a lot of ways. I think this is a solid movie, though. Maybe not in the heights of something like we covered not too long ago, like In Full Bloom, where I was just in love with the visual artistry there.
Yeah, that was a specialty. That really came out of nowhere.
Yeah. But by no means is this a bad movie, and like we covered so much so far, you know, a very good story to bring that above. You know, bring it above just maybe something a little bit more cookie cutter, or maybe one of those imitators, like you said before, Tom, you know, of the wrestler, you know, sad fighting movie, I guess is the subgenre. But yeah, as much as I could critique some predictable aspects, again, this film had focus, and the focus was on the fighting, getting us to the ring, and providing us some very creative, you know, fight choreography to MMA, which is so chaotic to begin with.
Yeah.
Making sense of that for the audience, I think, is a feat that should not be understated. So we're going to go ahead and give Warrior a 73.
Ooh, 73. Okay. Definitely one to check out for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought it was a good watch.
Yeah, okay. That kind of came out. The 73 is very good. And I like that. I think, I don't know. I don't know what it is about these fighting movies, but I just think we've had a good string of these.
Yeah.
And I don't know, is because there's so much sadness and like, I mean, the way you just have to fight to be so high up just to get anywhere in the sport. I don't know what it involves exactly, but that's great. That's fantastic. I forget what we gave In Full Bloom.
I think that cracked the 80s.
Is that right? Okay.
Yes,
yeah, I think you're right.
And I mean, that on a whole different level, just because, I mean, it had drama. It had, you know,
love the way it was shot.
Yeah, wonderful shot. I mean, there was just artistry to how it looked, you know. Not to take the luster away from Warrior, though.
Sure, absolutely. Okay, so that's Warrior with a 73. Okay, we're going to move on to 2018. This film is called Kin.
And you're like, wait, what is Kin? You know?
I have no idea what it is. So what do we have here, and why was it on your radar exactly? Why did this fit in with the travel movies?
Sure. Yeah, this was my second on the road watch, and Kin was on one of my lists for some time because of very sleek sci-fi visuals, which I undoubtedly saw in a trailer and wrote quick down on a list of mine. In the time it was off my radar, though, it released to be a critical and commercial failure. So I quickly, much like was the theme this week, I quickly saw this. I was like, all right, I'm excited to kind of call heads or tails on this.
Yeah,
and give my 2 cents.
Look
into
what happened
it,
with Ocean's 13.
Right.
Exactly. Those are the best. That's when something like that happens.
Exactly. Vin the Contrarian, just shaking things up. This movie was born from a short film called Bagman, same director brothers that did this, and they haven't really done anything either than this. And originally from Dust Studios, which is a indie sci-fi producer similar to something like Oats Studios, which we've talked about in the before,
yes,
Tom.
okay.
So much so that I believe when both were coming around, I sent you something from Dust, and you were like, wait, I don't know what this is. We were talking about Oats.
That sounds about right.
Yeah. So I confused.
So
them
very
too.
small time, like low budget stuff.
Yes, sci-fi short films, definitely in the producer type of studio role, and just giving sci-fi short filmmakers a chance. These brothers were one of them with Bagman, and then this got big enough to be transformed into Kin.
Okay.
So the story here is, not to overcomplicate it, it is about a kid that finds a sci-fi space gun, and it is the coolest space gun I've ever seen in years. I mean, the design on this thing is like District 9 cool. Like you want a replica of it. It's so awesome. What is mind-boggling is the film does everything it can to run away from the fun premise of kid finds a sci-fi gun to shove this like moody family drama coming of age in your face, and it just does not work. This also includes James Franco playing a cartel gangster hunting his kid and his brother.
I could see that.
Once again, this is a story of brothers. The kid is much younger than his brother, and there's a little bit of a chase there. What's odd is that this film really takes such a downer tone. It's almost like Drive, in the sense that it's unusually sad. It's unusually reflective, almost so that it kind of hurts itself a little bit with this.
Huh.
And this downer tone drama is such a poor match for kid has a cool alien gun premise that it takes halfway into the movie that there's even anything remotely interesting with this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so they didn't take it like kid finds cool space gun, and then we get into like, is that the only sci-fi that's in this film?
Yes.
Like it's just the shooting of the cool gun, and that's it.
There is a slightly there are sci-fi.
You don't have to get into it. You have to get into it.
There are sci-fi forces in the sense that someone is looking for this gun. This gun got here somewhere. Okay. You know what I mean? So we have, real world James Franco cartel,
chasing
leader.
These two kids.
Exactly. Chasing older brother, sci-fi forces chasing younger brother.
Okay. All right.
It's not good though.
It's interesting premise. I mean, it sounds like it would be tough to make it into a good movie.
Yeah. It's a shame because the CGI, the design, the visual design here is gorgeous. I mean, stunning.
Really?
Yeah. But it is, less than 5% of the film. It is really sprinklings of these sci-fi elements, and instead, I really can't call this too much of a sci-fi. It's, it is much more of this like downer, coming of age, gritty family drama. Just make cool scenes with this gun, man.
You're looking for a bit of a thriller, right?
Yeah, or just I don't know. Just
something cool with the gun.
Even just from a script perspective, the kid has the gun. For the amount of times that I said, well, maybe the gun will come into play here, that he's carrying it with him, or nope, there's just nothing, again, I can't stress enough when we get the CGI, the sharp looking design, maybe the fidelity and the quality of it is because it was so so few. You know, they could really pump the quality, you know, their budget into these few couple things. I mean, there's a scene that is awesome with a portal, and I mean, it just looks so cool, but none of it is given a share of the screen time. It's like Terminator without Arnold doing anything, basically. It really is. I mean, everything wrong with this boils down to the family elements. A perfect example is there is this scene that the brothers go into a strip club, and the kid's obviously underage for the strip club. It bounces back and forth between being a dark, sad, what are we doing here? You know better to raise me this way kind of thing, to fun, happy, upbeat, like, oh, the strippers are giving him soda, and you know, we're having a good time, and he's teaching how to respect women. It's so conflicted, and none of it has to do with the cool space gun. It's outrageous. Oh man. I was disappointed with it.
It doesn't seem like the movie has, like, I don't know, how would you put that into words? It doesn't have clarity. It doesn't have proper narrative. I mean,
confusion, lack of focus. Definitely confusion on what the hell we want. You know, almost what are we signing up for when we see this? You know. And maybe kin doesn't equate to space gun, but you know, I mean, man, it was very frustrating.
So would you put this as like sad drama with sci-fi dressings?
Yeah, absolutely. It's like they made a sad drama out of like one of those 90 movies like Star Kid or something, where like the kid finds like a, you know, something, you know, like a something sci-fi that he's using, or like Flight of the Navigator or something like that. It's like trying to be a fun 90s sci-fi romp from a kid's perspective, but it's also very sad and very intense. And James Franco is like a full cartel member, so it's like very intense in weird ways, but it's also PG-13, you know. It's a mess.
It's a mess. That's what it sounds like.
Yeah. It's also critically, it's got some very corny, stale acting. And I don't want to grill these actors too much.
Dennis Quaid is in it, I see.
Dennis Quaid was bad.
Was he?
Yeah.
Poor guy. I just want to be good.
Yeah. You know, Franco, maybe passable. His brother, though, I mean, the lines just come off like, man, he's it's like it's first round of acting. And granted, you know, I want to maybe clock this criticism back, because these are, these not our student filmmakers, but these are you know, new filmmakers. You know, they hit it big with an interesting short film. They got a chance at cracking into this, and
blew it.
Well,
they blew it. They made a bad picture.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know. What highlights the crappy family drama is worse acting, and again, it's just like, man, how do you not understand? We want to see the space gun. You know what I mean? It just really boils down to that.
That's what it seems like.
Or at least I want to see the space gun. I mean, maybe I'll clock myself back. You know, it's like it's a cool gun. You know, I don't know. There's just like something fundamental is like you want to write a story from a kid's perspective. The kid is going to be about, you know, what he found and the curiosity, and maybe he tries it off and it goes off, but at least we have a scene like that. You know what I mean?
I mean, I love the idea of a kid finding a cool space gun, and the people who own it are tracking him down and trying to find it. That alone is awesome.
If anything, there was... Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. It's reminding me of, what the hell is that movie called? The Watch.
The Watch?
The comedy with...
Oh, okay.
With Ben
Stiller?
Ben Stiller, and my boy is in it as well.
Stop, no. You have no boys in The Watch.
Oh, yes, I do.
Ooh.
Vince Vaughn.
Yeah. Oh, he is in The Watch.
Yeah, him, and then and Superbad kid that I can't remember his name, and he was named today. Who was Superbad?
Jonah Hill.
Yes.
Is Jonah Hill in The Watch?
Yes.
Okay.
And then they got a black guy that no one knows to be the black guy in the film.
Right, token black guy.
But that's like found an object, and then like I think it's actually like a decent movie. It's a kind of a funny comedy. But that's a film that do it. We've alien object, and then a movie around that alien object, and the aliens it like pursues. Not this. This would have been cool if kid finds it, and then it's like him and his brother in an all-out chase.
Right, and it is a chase, but it's not about what's fun with it. I mean,
the cartel doesn't even involve them. I mean,
yeah, exactly. I mean, listen, I will. I'm going to be listening back to this and turning over in my grave. If anything, the Adam Project of all things did this better.
No.
Yeah, I'm telling you, the Adam Project at least understood that from the kid's perspective, the kid wants to have fun with the cool sci-fi stuff.
Yeah,
you know
okay,
what I mean?
all right, very true.
There's just something fundamental there. Folks, I'll say there. It is such a shame because this is a great looking film, and parts of this film, I would say, it is just such a shame that they could not put the focus where it needed to be, and no less maybe take lessons from The Hunted and slim it down. You know what I mean? Slim it down to an hour and 30. Actually, I don't know the runtime on
It's an hour 42.
Okay, so. They did slow it down. Slow it down back to that short film.
That's so true.
And again, I can't stress enough if this somehow gets to the ears of these director brothers. Believe me, I love the vision. I love the visual design of what is put on screen, but. I wanted to like this. This movie found its way back to my eyes after being on a list that I wrote down on a random note from 2018. So, if anything, I was a contrarian and wanting to say I love this movie, but it absolutely just fails to understand why would anyone watch this in the first place? What is really just the elevator pitch, getting people in the seats or clicking and watching it, on the road, it's and coming back to this. So much so, I would say, in a last-ditch effort to really try to fight and find some value in this film, I actually gave the original 15-minute short a watch on YouTube, the Bagman. And
that's a good idea.
It is 100% different as far as how the drama is built and how the gun is used, but maybe it gets an honorable mention. I think if you're really maybe curious about some of this visual design that I'm talking about, that 15-minute short does not have the visual fidelity that we find in Kin, but it is at least a step in the right direction. So a slight honorable mention for the original short Bagman, which you can watch very easily on YouTube. Otherwise, I would say don't bother with this one. We're going to go ahead and give Kin a 34.
Okay, that's what I like to see.
Tom's out for blood.
34, I love it. That's why I never heard of the movie before.
Right.
Well, that's a disappointment for you.
It is, yeah. Especially because I found it, I was excited. I was like, "Oh yeah, I remember seeing this."
What is your ratio of excited and then being disappointed when it comes to sci-fi? Because you're always so you're always so upbeat about it.
I know,
because anyone could be that one.
Yeah,
the one you're searching for, your next Solaris and everything.
Exactly. But so many are not.
I would say I would say your percentage is is not so high.
Yeah, it's not great.
There's a lot of 34 sci-fi out there. That's why.
Right. Also, I think there's something I'm consciously fighting to not, fighting my bias of liking sci-fi just for the sake of that.
Right.
It's space or it's something out there. You know what I mean? So.
Well, apologies to the Baker brothers,
right.
But that's a good honorable mention to see the roots and to see there was actually something there.
Sure,
there's a reason why they got a full feature.
Get these guys with Wetaworks or some really cool like prosthetic or physical
even the guy that
special
did
effects
Oates or whatever.
Blomkamp.
Yes.
Get them with a studio that vision can get through, and maybe just a little bit more budget, and I think hopefully they have a good second attempt.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. All right. Well, still that's 34% though for Kin 2018. We're gonna move on to this year. I don't know what possessed you to watch this. I said when we first sat down, folks, I was just like, I can't even believe you watched this.
Oh man!
So I was surprised completely with this, and because I feel like what I felt watching this trailer probably 5 times in theaters was if you've seen the trailer, you've seen the whole movie.
Yes,
it's like bad. You could just tell.
Yep.
It's a Michael Bay film. Mm-hmm. It didn't look like a good Michael Bay film. This is Ambulance, and what do we get with this? Was this rockin' movie, Vin?
Oh yeah. This is our first inaugural Michael Bay film on the podcast.
Oh, it is, isn't it?
Yeah. And I mean, you hit the nail on the head, Tom. The reason why I didn't cover this when it came out, because I mean, we were running the podcast,
big time.
As far as this coming out, I avoided it because if anything, The trailer was atrocious.
So atrocious.
I mean, almost a
Assuming
perfect
at least.
example.
As someone who didn't see it, I'm assuming so.
Oh, you assume correctly.
Okay.
But in that itself, I mean, maybe to answer the $1 million question of why the hell return to this, especially now that it's out of the spotlight, is that it was. I wanted an easy watch. I was on the road this week. I needed an easy watch to recoup, and I thought I almost knew this film. It turns out I did know this film from all the trailers. So hey, it's easy. But let's go ahead and just do a brief introduction of Bayhem 101, if you will. You see, Bay understands the movie biz is about one thing, and that is cash is king. It is about money. It is about making the loudest blockbuster possible. His camera never stops. Lens flares are on every shot.
Explosions.
Fireworks. Oh,
yeah.
Absolutely. A lot of practical effects to the credit of it, but you can be sure the script is trashed, if only to keep the action moving forward. I would say Bayhem refers certainly to the chaotic pacing of his movies, but it's also about momentum.
Is this a new term from you? Or is this a known thing?
Oh, Bayhem is self-coined. He says
self-coined.
Yeah, I think Michael Bay first came up with
this guy
Bayhem.
is the biggest joke.
Yeah,
I don't think he's not a fan of ours, correct?
Oh,
no, we're not fans of his.
No, yeah. There's, I mean, I
if
hate
we get
the
big,
Transformers.
he'll learn him. He's not going to be a fan of ours either. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah,
No, but this guy sucks.
I think the only other time we mentioned Michael Bay was with the West Side Story review, actually, because it's his favorite movie, or one of his.
That's so funny.
But I think that relentless momentum of action. For what it's worth, I mean, Ambulance is a perfect study or perfect dive into this. I mean, if you want to know what Michael Bay is about, Ambulance is honestly,
Really,
it is 100. Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
It is
More than Transformers.
more than Transformers, more than Pearl Harbor, more than, you know.
Did Pearl Harbor?
Oh, yeah. More than any of his music videos. But yeah. Just wanted to get that out of the way. And if anything, like I said, there is almost a interesting study that if you're morbidly curious of Michael Bay, Ambulance kind of is 100% his DNA. This movie is actually a remake of a 2005 Danish film called Ambulancen.
Okay.
I don't know if that's how it's pronounced.
No, yeah, it sounded right. We'll go with it.
Yeah. We follow two brothers played by Jake Gyllenhaal and Yahya Abdul-Mateen, who was the new Morpheus.
The second, by the way.
Yeah, the second.
Abdul-Mateen the second.
Yeah, he was new Morpheus in the.
Who we liked.
Yes, he was very good in that, and he's solid in this. Only one that is, I would say, grating is actually Jake Gyllenhaal. So, take that for what it's worth. The story starts at a breakneck speed, getting us right into the opening heist that will soon spiral out of control and test the bond between these brothers as they escape in an ambulance. That's obviously where the name comes from. Acting-wise, this movie is action-wise, this movie is a non-stop roller coaster for 2+ hours. I mean, it is all an action scene. It's nonstop.
I don't know if I hate that. If the movie's trying to be a thing and it's that thing,
yeah,
it's 2 hours and 16 minutes though.
Right. This most of all of anything we've covered this week needed to be an hour and 30.
Oh, okay. Well, that totally makes sense. Yeah.
If you're gonna make, we want to talk about one note. If you wanted to make a movie that is exclusively an action scene, I think there needs to be, there's fat to trim because as action slightly lulls to, as the story needs it to be functional.
Right.
It's still at a certain, they're going from 100 miles per hour to 60 miles per hour in the ambulance. You know what I mean? It's very ridiculous. At any one time on screen, there are 2 helicopters, 4 cop cars, 3 motorcycles, drones weaving in and out of the chase, cars getting demolished. I would say if you love actual physical cars getting wrecked, if you're a Blues Brothers fan, this is a watch, and all of this is shot in downtown Los Angeles. I mean, I think the technical production of this film is actually pretty impressive. I mean, no joke. It was only $40 million on the budget, and I mean, this looks more expensive than Gray Man. This looks more expensive than, a lot of things that we've covered.
Just for the sheer usage because of, are you saying the amount of traveling the film actually does and the fact that you're in LA and what you need to do for all that?
It's on shot in LA and it's downtown LA.
Oh, God, the traffic for those people.
Yeah, for sure. It's just the amount of car wrecks. Obviously, I'm imagining he's using some CGI, but as far as like the physical destruction, the mayhem, it looks real. Like these are gasoline explosions. These are them breaking through concrete barriers.
Hey, props to the practical effects.
Yeah,
which also may go to show that practical effects are cheaper and better to go to than CGI like the Gray Man did.
You got a good point there. You got a good
Gray
point.
Man
because Gray Man had those action sequences that there was all CGI.
Yeah, and reportedly $200 million.
Michael Bay knows how to make a movie.
Wow, we're starting to be fans. By the way, what you saying it's $40 million it was to make?
I think $40 million, and then obviously
worldwide. The total money
what it brought in.
Yeah, what it brought in?
I don't know.
Under $52 million.
Ooh,
it made $22 million in America.
I think that's also why we slightly didn't cover it too, because it wasn't like we weren't seeing it.
No one was talking about it. That's bad, man. That's really bad.
Yeah, and surprising too, him coming off of it. I think definitely his last was a Transformers, maybe 13 hours or something like that, but it is with great sadness, and I really mean that, because this film, if you watch it and you turn your brain all the way off, it could probably be a pretty good time, but it is with great sadness that I call this definitely the worst script of 2022.
Wow, so
the
far?
Script is whack. This thing,
that bad to take that crown is a lot, though.
Oh, yeah, right. And then not even finishing the year, I have full confidence that this will remain the worst script. Every single line is either screamed at you, or there to manipulate some fake emotion. Like, we will go from Jake Gyllenhaal screaming at the top of his lungs as this ambulance is going 100 miles per hour, and then Yaya's phone will ring, and then someone will say, "Oh, is that your wife calling?" And it's just like, no, I don't feel for this man who just destroyed like 30 cop cars. There's no emotion here, and I would say worst of all, it's jam packed with just straight up cringy comedy. I don't like using the word cringy, but it's so inappropriately placed.
There shouldn't be any comedy in this.
Yeah, and it's almost the lulls in the action are to fit in comedy, of all things. It is unreal. An example of this is that they're going a little bit slower in the ambulance. It's only like 60 miles an hour. And to calm down, they both put in an earbud and they start singing Sailing to calm down. Like, sailing takes me away. Like, it's so out of place. And then they take the earbuds out and like there's sniper fire on the helicopters are flying under it is nuts. It is nuts. And believe me, I was laughing a lot at this, folks. It was all at the film, very strictly at the film.
Because it's not supposed to be a comedy. It's not billed as a comedy at all.
No. I mean, it's a comedy in the sense that every film is in the wake of Marvel kitsch, and Marvel, jokiness to it. But there really was some Deadpool-ish type of comedy here, in the way that jokes were layered and references were made. References even to Michael Bay movies, which I think was particularly tasteless.
That's not good.
Yeah, like particularly a failure for that. But I can't
stand that.
I can't stress enough, though. I mean, this movie has really solid action. I mean, and maybe even like great action. I was so conflicted. No. I was so he's gearing up, folks. He doesn't know what's gonna come out of my mouth. I would say it's got great action, but boy, with that script, it just shits the bed. It is so bad. I was in tears laughing how bad some of these lines were. I mean, really. I think maybe this is our freshest case of so bad it's good.
I was going to ask that question because it kind of... It's sounding okay.
Yeah, it's
If you're in tears laughing, I mean, that's not a bad thing.
right,
Yeah.
right. Yeah, not for the film's intentions,
You're not
but
sad.
laughing
You're
at
not
it.
sad like the last movie was.
Yeah.
Like Kin.
Right. I wasn't disappointed with
Right.
this. I don't know. It's gonna be a hard one. I mean, this movie is like a soup of other movies. It's a little bit of heat, especially with like the LA heist type of theme. Definitely a little bit of speed. Definitely a little bit of phone booth. The comedy, like I said, is very Deadpoolish in how it's layered, and I would say, Bay is ripping off almost from every major action sequence, especially with helicopter uses. I think when I look at this action film, and I want to give credit to some of these action sequences, it's a little bit of On Shoulders of Giants, but it's also like Michael Bay being a psychopath in his own style. Like, we have a scene very similar to Terminator 2 where there's a helicopter flying under a bridge and in pursuit of the ambulance. But it's not just one helicopter, it's two helicopters, and they're dancing around each other, and then there's sniper fire. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's so much.
It's so overkill.
Yeah, it's excess. I would say all of it kind of makes for a wonderful mess of a film. By no means can I give this film a good rating for how horrific the script is.
Okay.
But it is not a terrible time and might be a guilty pleasure watch for a lot of audiences for how outrageous it is. And I think so bad it's good, guilty pleasure, these are kind of on a little bit of an island for the ratings. But for now, we're going to go ahead and give Ambulance a 48.
Okay, all right, that's fine.
Please. He can rest at ease.
That's the thing, because like if you're laughing and literally enjoying watching it because the action is good, but it's so bad and it's so cheesy and ridiculous, it's just like, wow, how do you place that?
Yeah.
And this kind of it, I think a 48 represents the so bad it's good. We had talked about that's what almost like the 50 would be.
Sure.
But
yeah,
okay,
and definitely something we're actively feeling out where it lands. I think though. 48 maybe illustrates that it's probably on the wrong side of the coin for a lot of audiences, for even just in that excess. Like,
see, now I need to make I need to make some commentary of
Tommy Two Shoes.
No. Oh, I wish. Oh, that would be hilarious. No, I have to make commentary on just like the public at large and moviegoers. Well, my theory of how Marvel broke
cinema.
Broke cinema and good cinema.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Because it's so much of it and so many of them over a long period of time where we think that's a good movie now. This has an 88 audience score.
Oh, my God.
And that's bad. That's pathetic.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't say pathetic. I mean, people can like whatever they want.
Okay. Pathetic was wrong. You're right. But wrong. You're right. Because I agree. I know for a fact your 48 is correct.
Right.
You know what I mean? I know I'm not going to watch this movie and come away with an 88. But it's like, what's going on that somebody would people, that's what people think.
I think that's where guilty pleasure is really,
Okay,
it's fine
fun.
to like
it's a fun 88.
Yeah, it's very much.
Again, it's not a comedy.
Fast and Furious, kind of a similar thing. That's just so outrageous. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And I mean, I don't know. I definitely get what you mean. Why do so many of these films have a place in our kind of
the latest Spider-Man
landscape?
That don't deserve to be in that.
Right.
And I think, by the way, I think the people, our producers and listeners, understand.
Sure.
Where we're coming from, and I think they agree with us.
Sure. Yeah, but I
88%.
Yeah.
For over 1,000 audience members who rated
really?
it.
Really? Yeah.
I think they're the only 1,000 who saw the movie. Anyway, I think your 48 is appropriate.
Yeah.
And I will happily watch this and laugh and give it a 48 as well.
Oh, for sure. This is probably the biggest boys watch we've had in a long time. So
since Cop Shot.
Yeah, but Cop Shot was good. This is like whoa. Whoa. Also, maybe take an Advil pre-watching this film,
It's so Michael Bay.
It is, yeah. And that's what goes back to the beginning of what we were talking about. I mean, this is
I don't hate that.
Fundamental Bayhem. And in that it itself, again, that kind of played into north of 40 for the rating for me, because I think there could be some morbid enjoyment out of watching this, knowing you're going to hate it. But also, I mean, Michael Bay is clearly a successful filmmaker. We need to, I think it's Werner Herzog that says it, that we need to study what is coming at us, in the public sphere. So if people are watching this, well, barely breaking even.
Yeah, that's the debate.
So maybe if some people are watching this, but he's clearly getting funding.
But if you're in a hotel room alone and you're just looking for an easy something,
the easiest
go ahead
of
and
something.
have a good time of this.
Yeah, so much so that the trailer, I knew the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, that trailer was atrocious.
Oh, yeah.
That is pathetic.
I mean, you read my mind. It was a note I had. And,
is that right?
Yeah, and you opened it with it, and I think a lot of people probably felt the same. Maybe that played into people thinking they didn't have to see it.
Yeah, we just saw the goddamn movie. We don't pay money, but we just saw it. Okay, all right, that's enough on that. That's 48 for ambulance.
Ambulance.
Thank you for that, Vin. We just want to remind folks here, we are completely producer supported. So as we're young, as we're just getting started, if you could, go to the donations tab at thedailyratings.com and put a monetary value of what you're getting out of this show and website for us. So are you finding yourself that you're into movies more, checking out the website, listening to the podcast? Just put a $sign to it. And that's kind of how we do things here. We want to stay away from corporate advertising. We don't want to really deal with that or flood our site with advertising and everything like that. Or all of a sudden we'll be in a MeUndies ad. And it's just not us. It's not what we want to do. And we think this is kind of going to be one route that people do for podcasts, and we're not the first to do it, but we're continuing the value for value model, and that's what this is. And it's a real producer credit when you do give us money. You send us money, we'll read your donation note, and then you will be an official producer of the Daily Ratings. You'll get a mention and shout out on the website, on the podcast, and notes and everything like that. So that's kind of how we're operating here. If you don't have anything to donate or you're not quite there yet or something like that, hey, again, we're young. Please get the word out.
Sure,
as we're getting this website up and running, we're starting to tell more and more people, and we're hoping you're doing the same. Like I said in previous weeks, we want to be a part of the conversation. So if you can help us get us in there, that's awesome. And that's producing as well. So, all right, with that, we're going to go to our last film here. This is our in theaters now. This is one I was excited for because I think I want to go see this in theaters. But we'll find out in 10 minutes if that's the case. Folks, this is the new Brad Pitt movie. This is Bullet Train. And I don't really know this director, I don't think, David Leitch. I don't know how much he's done before, Ben.
Yeah.
But what do we have here? What kind of movie is this, and is it worth a watch?
Yeah, David Leitch is now directing a lot more, but he was a long-time stunt coordinator. His most recents are Hobbs and Shaw, Atomic Blonde, and then also Deadpool 2. So that is...
So he's pretty big then. He's doing things.
Yeah. And especially with how much time he has as a stunt coordinator, I would enjoy seeing more stunt coordinators go into directing because clearly they have the eye for what's going to be. Yeah, exactly.
That's pretty cool, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, imagine if we had like Bruce Lee directing. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
You know, or maybe a Jackie Chan. I mean, I
was going to say Chuck Norris.
Come on, Chuck, get in the seat. Get in the seat. This movie introduced a larger world of contract killers and jams them all in one Japanese train to wrestle together on intertwining jobs and cross wires. There is almost a whodunit type of setup to this, which I thought was surprising. There really is a mystery that you unpack on this train in the midst of a lot of stylized killers, a lot of names and code names, and they have their own intros. Very, very smoking aces. Almost feels like a transplant from an early 2000s type of action film.
Is it very stylized?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Okay. I mean, as far as, text on screen, flashbacks, kind of different sequences that are almost like commercials within the world, but kind of build the world around these contract killers.
Yeah, sure.
There's a lot to it there. And all of this is wrapped up in a comedic action film. I would say, once again, not to the disgusting level it was with Ambulance, but there is very much comedy weaved into all of the action here. So, comedic action, whodunit. I mean, I'm working my best here. These are subgenres of subgenres at this point. So, but that's kind of the elevator pitch. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. I'm picturing a John Wick murder on the Orient Express.
Oh, very good.
Meets, I don't know, a comedy.
Yeah, definitely Murder on the Orient Express. I mean, I didn't even think of that, but yeah.
You're on a train, trying to figure out what's going on with John Wick fighting.
Sure, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So each killer is given a share of screen time in a semi-ensemble cast. I would say the story is actually kind of split 5 ways. It is. I mean, Brad Pitt is definitely our guy, but it is a semi-ensemble.
We're sharing the screen a lot, though.
Yes. I would say Brad Pitt is the focus. He plays a chill Zen hitman who is a bit off his game, but still a pro. He doesn't get as much screen time as I would like, but he holds up a lot of scenes. I don't want to get into too many of the other killers that we get focus on, partly because I don't know. I was kind of annoyed with them, but by the end I enjoyed them. So I think I just kind of want to leave it alone. And
Okay.
mainly speaking, I think Brad Pitt is the draw here, for a lot of audiences, getting them in the theater.
I think 100%.
Yeah. So much so that I actually had 3 people walk out of this movie for some reason.
What?
Yeah, I have no idea. And
Were they in the same group or like separately?
no, the same group. I was like, I don't think it's
not that bad.
Yeah, it's not bad. I don't. Maybe they were really expecting Brad Pitt, but I have no idea.
What about these characters that you didn't love or that you were annoyed with in the beginning? Was it the acting or was it just like what the character was written like?
I think it was maybe the specific comedic spin that was happening there. The comedy's not bad. Again,
Too much.
I feel like I'm over comparing this week, but this really was a Smoking Aces kind of early, 2000s type of action movie that everyone has very quick dialogue, and I don't know. I think when I was in the beginning, I kind of maybe came in with expectations, and that kind of blinded me to what I was getting actually in the product. So.
Okay.
I think it's either going to work for you or it's not, as far as this. But where I want to stress across the board, especially no spoilers, comedic action is very true to how all action scenes are even choreographed, because it is always in an attempt for a joke. I think this is showing a ripple effect of the type of action we see in like a Deadpool 2 or a Hobbs and Shaw versus an Atomic Blonde, where Atomic Blonde was trying to be cool as ice. Those other two, their action sequences, they're certainly badass and they're certainly well choreographed, but they're kind of for jokes in themselves as an objective. They're not about lethality.
No, big time.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Take that for what you will. I think we live in an age that so much comedy is interwoven into movies that, I think sometimes that can hurt just specifically with action, how lethal it looks. And I don't think it's per se a problem here, but
I think that's a great point.
Yeah.
I think that's another reason why Marvel is just lackluster to me, because it has this comedic light feel that when it is serious, I don't ever get that seriousness.
Sure. It doesn't sell it.
And there's some weird stuff where sometimes comedy can be interplayed there. Like when you a movie, The Nice Guys, who we both really like. You have a great score on it.
Yeah.
When you look at that, there's comedy all over that film, and it really, really works, though. But the problem is if you do it just slightly off or the jokes aren't quite there, if it's not acted well, then all of a sudden you're watching just a stupid movie.
Yeah.
So would you consider this, is it balancing on the edge, kind of?
Yes, definitely balancing on the edge successfully, but definitely a couple steps away from being a stupid movie.
Okay. I bet Brad Pitt does a great job of delivering the comedic moments.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. But even with Brad Pitt, we saw this in the trailer. There's a moment where a train attendant kind of walks in and he buys a glass of water, and across from him is his competing assassin, his competing contract killer that has proven himself on screen to do nothing and care about no collateral damage, no people getting killed in between, and they both stop and they have time for jokes. I think the lethality and the stakes of that moment are directly hurt by that emphasis on comedy.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think my best pitch for this movie, though, is it is fun, it is snappy, it has creative fights, but my praise doesn't go much beyond surface level. Once again, a boys' watch for sure. This is the week of boys' watches, basically. So, what hurts the rating for this one is, I think, the writing, plain and simple. Unlike something like Snowpiercer, there's another comparison, where the simplicity of the train kind of improves the storytelling or has a momentum to the storytelling. This movie is all over the place. There is a heavy, heavy abundance of flashbacks and side scenes that certainly give some variety, but I really think are just very poorly placed. It takes us away from the story way too often. and way too often to the sense that we almost, or at least I did, it got put on the back burner, the real stakes of what was there.
That's not good. You're being pulled off the train way too often.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And as odd as it is to say, these flashbacks have action sequences of their own. Some are the best action sequences in the film, and I think, if anything, it kind of hurts this train pitch. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Keep your action sequences on the train, and where we need to be progressing with the story in that action sequences are to be, progressing the plot along, or illustrate conflict there. It's just way too often this happens. The script has a real problem just staying in its own premise. And I would say also characters just talk in massive monologues that don't really hit too often. Some come off straight up annoying, some come off unfunny. I think with this, again, I was sold maybe on these characters by the end, but especially in the beginning, it's either going to work for you, it's not going to work for you.
Okay.
So, I think I was a little bit on the side of it not working.
Yeah, but that's a good way to. I think for some people probably would love it.
Sure.
Some people probably would love it, especially that little bit more. I mean, again, unlike Ambulance, this is billed as a comedy,
right?
Or a part comedy at least. So there is something there, and I think maybe for some audiences that would hit more.
Right.
But I think that's a good distinction to make, because I think I would be in your boat. Do it tastefully, because we're really here to see some good action.
Yeah. And that's more than anything. That's what reminded me of this kind of like early 2000s time period, that this, the way the characters talk, the way they introduced what they're about, what's their gimmick as a killer, what's the, what their uprooting was, who trained them, all of this is in blocks of monologue that are just dumped on us. And then we have an action sequence, and then there's a joke in the middle of action sequence that even disrupts that. You know what I mean? It's just, I don't know. The writing is just very clumsy, and maybe
clumsy, lazy. Yeah, because it could. Yeah, it's just not the highest performing product really.
Yeah,
that we have.
exactly.
Yeah.
So I think luckily that again, I'm going to take my personal bias out of it not working for me in the beginning out of the way. I think that could be a coin flip for a lot of people. And the highlight is, again, the action sequences. We get very creative action sequences, and our director here is clearly, not out of ideas, not out of any sort of gas when it comes to building creative set pieces, and how much that is, our director's pedigree for stunt work, and how much it really shines through in this film. So I think it's a big highlight is just creative fights and choreography. So much of the train is used. If anything, why it was like, in my notes, I was saying, why are we not on the train more? Why are we constantly flashing back outside of the train? Is that the best fights are actually on the train, because they're worked in tight spaces. They're working creatively with.
I like it. It's cool.
Yeah,
it is. It's cool.
This Japanese bullet train has a like an anime sponsored area, so we get to see fun, creative things with like mascot characters, and it's like, I really enjoyed the aspects that were using the train. Back to my comparison of, where something like Snowpiercer, it's using the train almost in every aspect of how the story and the film is told. In just the same way, this film had that, but it was just constantly jumping out of it. You know what I mean? It's
hurting itself, shooting itself in the foot with that.
Yeah, what's a shame is that it's, that is the strong point to it. I just wanted more of what it was about.
Yeah.
So, surprisingly, the mystery, or like I said, the kind of whodunit, takes up more screen time than I thought, and in ways more screen time than the action itself. I would say for 90% of this film, I was counting that as a negative, but by the end, I was actually surprised by the mystery, which is not something I get to feel with films, watching 5 movies a week. I'm very numb to films, if anything. So the fact that this film was able to surprise me a little bit with some of the twists here, I think it went from a plainly negative mark to actually a positive one. So I don't think...
That's a little surprise.
Yeah. I don't think the fact that this emphasis on mystery equal to action, if not maybe even a little bit heavier than action, is necessarily a bad thing. But the fights are there, they are solid, they are packed with good-looking slow motion, and just rule of cool stuff, you know what I mean? From the names of the contract killers to how they're introduced to, this film has a priority with just looking cool, being cool, and feeling cool, which I think is perfectly fine for what the film sets out to do. Really, listen, I could chew into this movie a lot more, but ultimately it would be to illustrate lackluster to above average rating. I would say unlike Gray Man that we covered a couple weeks ago, where the action was plagued with generic aspects, Bullet Train is much more unique. But some of the struggles to rise above something similar that is just kind of action candy is definitely coming to mind. Luckily, the film's style, I think, separates it enough, makes it unique enough. But I definitely was saying that, the action was lacking substance, and not that it had to be much more than that, but I was hoping really to walk away with it, especially with this emphasis on mystery, that it would have kind of resulted into something a little bit more special. Not to say a bad film, not to say a great film either. We're going to go ahead and give Bullet Train a 65.
Okay, but 65 is a pretty good score still.
Yeah.
I would be interested. I'm glad that has a lot of style to it, because that's kind of what it seemed like. And with Brad Pitt, with the fight sequences, I think I'd still be interested in going to see it.
Yeah. I think it's definitely worth a watch. Yeah. And again, more so, I'm curious of your take on it, because I was really scratching my head over this group of people that left the theater. I almost am eager to hear different perspectives on this film.
Yeah, no, I will. But I think it's good. That's why I wanted to wait to hear your thoughts on it and your review, because I'm set up better now. Mm-hmm. You've set it up enough.
Sure.
I know what the deal is, at
Certainly
least.
the expectation of more mystery.
Well, but it's more so just like that we're going to be off the train a little bit more, that it's not all Brad. It's a lot of other stuff going on in the multiple characters. But again, it felt like it had style. It just seemed like the action was going to be good. And I'm glad that is true, that held up, which is nice. Why people were walking out, God knows, I don't know.
Yeah,
I'll watch it and get back to you.
Yeah,
then, you have to tell me when they left too.
Oh, sure.
But okay, Vin. All right, so we're looking at these scores. This is a very not kind of middle of the road. I mean, again, a 65 is a good. 65 is a good movie.
Yeah.
And we've had 73 in there as well. I mean, looking at these, is there anything you want to add to this action-packed week, or credits?
It was honestly enjoyable in the sense that I didn't have to use my brain too much.
Week almost.
Yeah, definitely a weird week. Yeah, I feel like all of these movies could be TV watches. They weren't all TV watches, but I think that in itself, I was excited. And if anything, like I said, when I saw in some of the pre-research to form the review that these were bad scores, there was a genuine excitement to say, okay, I get now to put my 2 cents into it and call heads or tails if it's really bad or not. More often than not,
that's fine.
I was kind of agreeing with the directions here. No, but there was enjoyment there too.
Yeah, there's nuances there from watching it too. You know what I mean? There are decent nuances to catch in there as well.
Exactly. So
but
maybe our producers can write in and give me your favorite dad afternoon watch. I would love to.
That's fun.
I'd love to do another one like this. That it's on the road. I don't have to think too much, but they're solid movies.
Keep it about an hour and a half, folks, because those are really the best ones.
Yeah, I needed it.
But all right, Vin. All right, so we thank you for watching those, Vin. Thank you for stopping by. Folks at home, we're going to run this down one more time. We have The Hunted with a 64%, Warrior with a 73%, Kin with a 34%, Ambulance with a 48%, and Bullet Train with a 65%. We thank you so much all for listening, and we'll catch you next time on the Daily Ratings Podcast. If you enjoyed the podcast, if you would, give us a good rating or tell a friend about us. If you're wondering if a film is worth a watch or just like to see more movie ratings from Vince, be sure to stop by thedailyratings.com, where we have our ever-expanding catalog of films. Also, if you found value in the podcast or our site, become a producer and go to the donations tab on thedailyratings.com. You can donate whatever amount of value you feel you received from us. We're looking to build this into something large and great, but also be independent from those corporate sponsors. So we greatly appreciate any support from you all. So thanks so much, and we'll see you next time on the Daily Ratings Podcast.